This week, we're seeing more and more examples of the blowback that Republican lawmakers are facing over, well, really, Elon Musk and his DOGE cuts. The blowback from their very own constituents, packing town halls, frustrated, wanting answers, and demanding that their representatives do something. Last night, that was on display in Virginia's 1st Congressional District. Republican Congressman Rob Whitman holds monthly mobile office hours led by a staff member, so he was not there, but people showed up wanting to see the congressman.
I spent the last 6 months training in tax law to ensure employers were funding the employees' retirement funds adequately and timely. And these mass terminations without any assessment of the American people's needs will end up costing taxpayers more money. Disruption to services. You want to know why no one's at the Social Security office? They're firing people.
Joining me right now, CNN political commentator Bakari Sellers and Terry Sullivan, former campaign manager for Marco Rubio's presidential campaign. Two of my favorite people. It is good to see you guys. Bakari, on this topic, I want to play for you what the House Speaker Mike Johnson said just last night when asked about this blowback. Listen to this.
The videos you saw of the town halls were for paid protesters in many of those places. These are Democrats who went to the events early and filled up the seats. If the videos had panned,
you can't argue they were all
building,
paid protesters, though, Mr. Speaker.
Many of them were.
A Republican acknowledged they were his constituents.
One Republican acknowledged they were his constituents. That's fantastic. Okay, but they had Democrats come and fill the seats early.
Democrats can be your constituents, too, and no evidence that people were paid, of course, Bakari. But what do you think of the response from Mike Johnson?
Yeah, Mike Johnson is never going to win a profiles in courage. I mean, I think we know that. And if Republicans want to put their head in the sand and just continue to kiss up to Elon Musk, then so be it. But many Americans, black, white, Democrat, Republican, from New York all the way down to South Carolina and Mississippi, have heartburn with the rash way that DOGE is going through and just cutting many Americans' needs. As the woman said, it was kind of clear through her tears that they're not assessing Americans' needs before they do these cuts. And whether or not you're talking about USAID, and people are like, oh, this is just foreign aid, until they realize that USAID actually purchased so many agricultural goods from American farmers, whether or not it's Ebola response, whether or not it's all of these different things that are being cut, VA, et cetera. Americans are having a hard time with this, and if Republicans don't want to deal with it, so be it.
Terry, I'm wondering if Republicans, like if Mike Johnson is really kind of shoulder shrugging like he seemed to be publicly, if he really is doing that so much behind the scenes, how do you think he and leadership is managing this the right way? How do you think they should be managing this?
Well, look, this is an executive branch issue that the Trump administration is doing, and it's look, the amount of political courage that Donald Trump is showing by doing this. Republicans have been talking about cutting the deficit since as long as I can remember, sure as long as I could vote, and it's usually doesn't happen, and now it's actually happening right now. The American people are spending, or the American government is spending 25% more than it brings in every single year. People have to stop, and it's awful when folks lose their jobs. Every one of us has known a family member who's gotten laid off through no fault of their own, whether they worked in government or not. And so, look, this isn't great for the people getting laid off. It's awful. It's traumatic. But it happens, and the government isn't sustainable at this rate of spending. So we can talk about how it's phrased or how efficiently it's handled. Government doesn't handle anything efficiently, and it's never, laying off people is never going to be done in the most caring way. But at the end of the day, this has to be done. It is the single greatest threat to our economic stability in the United States. This deficit spending is out of control, and it's finally, we've got someone who's standing up to say, look, we're going to do something about it.
Bakari, you look like at one point you looked like you ate something sour, and then I don't know what your face did.
Yeah, no, I feel like I got to do economics 101, because the theory is, oh my God, Kate, I saved a lot of money from my budget this year because I didn't pay my mortgage. Like, that's not the way it works. That's not the way deficits work. That's not the way that economics works. I mean, you have to see the other side of the ledger. If we're going to talk about a balanced budget, if we're going to have a conversation about deficits, et cetera, you literally have to look at the other side of the ledger. And that is not what the argument was. So that's kind of first.
But Bakari, the other side of the ledger, is raising taxes. I'm sorry, like that's like the other side of the ledger is more income, and more income for the federal government is higher taxes. And so it's either cuts or higher taxes. Those are the options right now. And look, Republicans aren't for raising taxes.
I actually want to jump into that in a second, but Bakari, finish your thought.
No, and I was just going to say that these cuts are doing more damage to the economy in the long run, and I think that you have to do some assessment. If you and I actually went to a bar in D.C. right now, I wish Charlie Palmer's was still open. Shout out to the bartenders over there.
Yes,
I hope
please.
they got a new job. They were great.
Exactly.
But if we were able to go to the bar, we could probably figure this out and go through and do cuts that were direct and purposeful and intentional. What I'm saying is that by not assessing the needs of the American people, what DOGE is doing is ass backwards. I mean, that's the only way that I can think about saying it, because you're actually cutting things that people need in their daily lives, and it's harming people like American farmers. That's my point.
On television, you're supposed to say bass backward, just so you know. Terry, let's talk about this exact point about let's talk about it in the realm of the budget, because Mike Johnson gets it was a big win holding Republicans together in that vote. But they're now going to hit a reality wall on the Trump budget. And Axios frames it in an interesting way. It really gets at what you guys were just talking about, actually. Axios writes, most politicians agree on three truths. We have a spending problem, too much, a tax problem, too high or too low, and a debt problem, way too much. Yet the typical response is, make all three worse. Then they go on to say they are trying to convince their members, meaning Republicans, and the American public that you can take in less money, taxes, spend more on defense, and somehow reduce deficits without touching the programs that cost the most. This is the same conversation we have had for how long, gentlemen, in the realm of politics. This is going to be messy. How are Republicans in charge of all of those chambers of the Congress going to make sense of it? Terry.
Yeah, it's not easy. And look, making making legislation is like making sausage. No one wants to see how it's done. The reality is this is going to be tough to do, and it's going to be painful, and there's going to be bad news reporting or bad press out of it for Republicans in many situations. But this is a necessary thing that has to happen, and there's going to be some tough decisions made. Donald Trump says we're not going to touch entitlements. But look, there's some things that have to be done.
There's no way to do it without touching entitlements, and that is the thing that they promised they are not going to do. Though I did hear some inkling, though, yesterday of finding efficiencies and rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse could be is something that, and I'm just wondering if this is going to become the definition of terms of like, what's your definition of waste and fraud and abuse? Is it benefits? You know.
I think that's was actually my point, is that look, there is what is the entitlement as far as it's not waste, fraud, and abuse. Like that is when Elon Musk lays out someone getting 150 years old that's getting Social Security that they're probably not alive. That is not an entitlement you're cutting. That is fixing the glitch. And so I think there's going to be savings, and it's going to be cutting in a lot of different places to make this work.
Bakari, say yes or no. Do you agree with everything I say?
The answer is yes, Bakari. The answer is yes.
Can we go to break?
No, Can we go to commercial? I was like, the one time I have made him speechless, I now can retire. Guys, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's good to see both. Sarah,
I agree with most everything you say, Kate.
Thank you, Terry. Well, Terry gets an invite back. Bakari, you got work for it, like taking me to the bar. Sarah, you see what I did there? I don't think I've ever been able to do that.
Here's the thing. When